Story number 1. It was nearing midnight when I decided to leave the quiet hum of my downtown office, the city's nightlife just beginning to peak. Opting for convenience over the late-night bus ride, I summoned a ride through a popular app, a decision I'd come to question over the next harrowing hour. The car, a sleek, black sedan, arrived promptly. Its driver, Eli, greeting me with a nod that carried an undercurrent of tension I initially mistook for end-of-shift fatigue. As we merged onto the city streets, Eli's demeanor shifted abruptly. His eyes darted to the rearview mirror with a frequency that soon became alarming, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. Without warning, Eli floored the accelerator, the car lurching forward with such force it pressed me back into my seat. Confused and alarmed, I demanded an explanation, only to be met with a terse, "We're being followed." Glancing back, I noticed a nondescript sedan mirroring our every turn with unsettling precision. Eli's driving became a high-speed chase through the city's veins, each sharp turn and risky maneuver a testament to his desperation. He revealed in clipped sentences that he recognized the car tailing us. It belonged to a gambling bookie to whom he owed a substantial debt. His voice was laced with fear, explaining he'd taken to driving for the ride-sharing service in a frantic bid to gather the money needed to settle his losses. The night's fares, he admitted, were a drop in the bucket compared to what he owed. The chase escalated when the bookie, growing impatient, resorted to violence, a loud bang echoing as a bullet whizzed past our car, narrowly missing but shattering the illusion of safety the vehicle provided. My heart raced, adrenaline surging as I realized the gravity of the situation I'd inadvertently become a part of. Eli's evasive driving couldn't last. A missed judgment at an intersection led to a minor crash, our car spinning out and coming to a jarring stop against a street lamp. The bookie, undeterred by the collision, attempted to approach us, but as fate would have it, a police patrol car turned into the street at that moment. The officers, assessing the situation with quick professionalism, arrested the bookie and detained Eli for questioning. Despite the chaos, I emerged from the ordeal unscathed, a bystander caught in the crossfire of Eli's dangerous world. The night's events left me with a deeper appreciation for the precariousness of safety and the unseen burdens others carry. As I gave my statement to the police, the reality of how differently the night could have ended weighed heavily on me. Grateful for my unharmed state, I couldn't help but reflect on the choices we make and the paths they lead us down, a sobering thought that accompanied me long after the ordeal was over. Story number 2. Leaving a late-night study session, I booked a ride home through a ride-sharing app, feeling the weight of exhaustion and the eerie quiet of the deserted campus streets. The driver, listed as Derek, arrived in a car that seemed a bit older and more worn than I expected. As I got in, a brief nod was the only exchange between us, setting a tone of silence that hung heavy in the air. Derek's route back to my apartment complex took us through a part of town known for its abandoned industrial sites, a detour that immediately sparked a flicker of concern within me. The further we drove, the more desolate our surroundings became, with each turn taking us deeper into a maze of forgotten warehouses and shadowy alleyways. Derek hadn't spoken a word since I got into the car, and any attempted conversation on my part was met with silence. The odd route choice, combined with his refusal to communicate, escalated my initial worry into a palpable sense of danger. My phone's GPS confirmed my fears. We were moving in the opposite direction of my home, each minute taking us further into isolation. Realizing the severity of the situation, I calmly asked Derek where we were going. trying to mask the panic rising in my throat. Without turning his head, he simply stated, "Shortcut," in a tone that brooked no argument. The car's speed increased, making the idea of jumping out a dangerous impossibility. I scanned the car for anything I could use as a weapon or means of escape, finding only the seatbelt cutting across my chest and the locked door keeping me imprisoned. In a moment of sheer desperation, as the car slowed at an intersection, I made a decision. With a swift motion, I unbuckled my seatbelt, shouldered open the door, and rolled out onto the cold pavement, ignoring the sharp sting of scrapes and bruises. Scrambling to my feet, I ran without looking back, not stopping until I reached the bright lights of a 24-hour gas station. I called the police. The authorities informed me there was no record of a ride-sharing driver named Derek in the area that night. The memory of that harrowing ride lingers, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkness, even in the most seemingly ordinary situations. It's a cautionary tale, a story I share in the hopes that others may learn from my experience and remain vigilant in the face of uncertainty. Story number 3. On a chilly evening that carried the promise of rain, I exited a bustling restaurant, eager to retreat to the quiet comfort of my home. I hailed a ride through a ride-sharing app, the immediate confirmation of a nearby driver offering a swift end to my night. The car that pulled up matched the description on my screen, and without a second thought, I climbed into the back seat, greeted by a man with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, introducing himself as Tom. As we pulled away from the curb, I noticed Tom locking the doors, an action he explained away as a safety precaution. His driving was smooth, almost too meticulous, as we took a route that seemed unnecessarily circuitous, under the guise of avoiding late-night traffic. Attempting to make light conversation, I found Tom's answers evasive, his focus more on me in the rearview mirror than the road ahead. The unease began to settle in, a whisper of danger that I tried to dismiss as unwarranted paranoia. Without warning, the car veered into a dimly lit side street and came to an abrupt stop. In one swift motion, Tom produced a gun, pointing it squarely at me as he demanded all the money I had. The chilling calmness in his voice contrasted sharply with the violent tremor of my own heart. Fear gripped me, a cold vice that threatened to paralyze my senses. But survival instincts stronger than the terror whispered urgently, compelling me to act. In a moment of desperate courage, I feigned compliance, reaching into my pocket as if to retrieve my wallet. Instead, I unlocked the car door with a subtle click, a fortunate oversight on Tom's part. With a deep breath, I hurled myself out of the vehicle, tumbling onto the pavement and sprinting into the night, without daring to look back. I heard shouts behind me, but the pounding of my own heart and the rush of adrenaline drowned out everything else. I didn't stop running until I saw the lights of a late-night convenience store. Its open sign was a beacon of safety. Inside, I called the police, my voice shaking as I recounted the harrowing ordeal. They arrived quickly, but Tom and his car had vanished into the night, leaving no trace behind except the lingering fear that clung to my psyche. Reflecting on the escape, gratitude for my unharmed state mingled with the shock of how quickly a routine decision could spiral into a life-threatening situation. The experience taught me the value of vigilance and the importance of trusting my instincts. A lesson born from a night when an ordinary ride through a ride-sharing app turned into a chilling brush with danger. Story number 4. In the quiet of the night, with the city asleep and the streets empty, I found myself needing a ride after a long shift at work. The car that arrived was unremarkable, its driver introducing himself as Mike. with a nervous energy that didn't quite match the hour. As we started the journey, Mike's conversation darted between topics, leaving me feeling more confused than engaged. His driving soon matched his speech, erratic, unpredictable, and downright frightening. With each sudden turn and acceleration, my heart raced with fear, the silence of the night shattered by the screeching of tires and blaring of horns from startled drivers. Mike's demeanor, fueled by who knows what, swung between overconfidence and paranoia, made for a terrifying ride. As we navigated the city streets, his ramblings revealed a life on the edge, driven by an unquenchable thirst for something I couldn't quite grasp. The tension reached its peak when flashing lights appeared in the rearview mirror, casting an eerie glow on our chaotic journey. Mike's frantic attempts to evade whatever was chasing us only made things worse, bringing us dangerously close to disaster with each reckless maneuver. When he finally pulled over, I felt a mix of relief mixed with lingering uneasiness. As the officers charged onto the scene, their calm presence was a stark contrast to the mayhem of the ride. With Mike being arrested and the ride coming to a sudden end, I stepped out into the night, shaken but unharmed. The experience was a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the seemingly mundane moments of life. Grateful for my safety, I couldn't help but wonder what demons drove Mike to behave the way he did. As I walked away, the echoes of that terrifying journey stayed with me, a stark reminder of the risks we take when we trust our safety to strangers in the dead of night. The aftermath of the ride left me with a lingering sense of unease, the memory of Mike's erratic behavior haunting my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped a much worse fate, the close calls and near misses replaying in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Each time I closed my eyes, I was back in that car, the fear gripping me anew as we careened through the empty streets. As the days passed, the memory of that harrowing ride faded into the background, but the lessons learned remained. I vowed to never take my safety for granted again, to always trust my instincts, and to speak up when something felt off. As I hailed another ride through the app, I couldn't help but wonder who else might be out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to turn a routine ride into a nightmare. Story number 5. The evening was closing in, the city's bustling sounds muffled by the heavy rain, creating an atmosphere ripe for introspection, or, as fate would have it, a lesson in caution. On such a night, I decided to call a ride, hoping for a quiet ride back from the library. The car that pulled up, a little older than I expected, had its headlights piercing through the fog like wary eyes. The driver, Carl, greeted me with a voice that wobbled slightly, not from the cold, but from something less innocuous. At first glance, nothing seemed amiss, but as we embarked on our journey, the edges of my comfort began to fray. Carl's demeanor was jovially out of sync with the sobering weather, his laughter too loud, his stories too disjointed. With each turn, his driving grew more erratic, a tangible manifestation of my growing unease. The vehicle seemed to dance under his control, a precarious ballet between lanes, flirting dangerously close with the abyss of oncoming traffic. The scent of alcohol, initially dismissed as a trick of my imagination, now hung in the air, undeniable and potent. It was then the chilling realization dawned upon me. I was trapped in a moving vehicle with a driver who was intoxicated. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat echoing the car's erratic movements. Attempts to reason with Carl were lost in his boisterous denial, his condition far worse than I feared. The city outside became a blur, a nightmare landscape where safety seemed as distant as the stars veiled by the storm. In a moment of sheer terror, Carl's laughter turned into a shout as the car swerved, narrowly missing a lamppost, the specter of disaster momentarily as clear as the danger I was in.
Seizing a momentary pause in the chaos, I feigned nausea, begging Carl to stop the car. As soon as we lurched to a halt, I flung the door open and escaped into the rainy night, my breaths coming in sharp gasps. From a safe distance, I watched as Carl, oblivious to my departure, drove off into the night, a phantom ship disappearing into the fog. With my trembling hands, I called 911. I also requested another, safer ride to my home. The aftermath was a blur of flashing lights and official statements. The night's events playing back like a horror film, too surreal to be anything but a nightmare. Yet the reality was undeniable, a chilling testament to the danger that had sat inches away. As I finally reached home, the rain seemed to wash away the immediate fear, but the shadows of what could have happened lingered. A cold reminder of the fragility of safety in the hands of a stranger.